here, I think that perhaps we ought to have a copy of Winnie the Pooh sent to Peter Garrett's office. So that we get organised before he delivers so that he doesn't make a mess of it. I wanted to, first of all, acknowledge the Indigenous people and again remind ourselves that it is Indigenous people around the world who are suffering right now from the impacts of climate change in many profound ways, and here in Australia it is no different. And so when we're talking about climate, we're talking about climate justice as well. And you'll see in what I'm going to say today that that's a very strong theme to move from the science to the community. Now, I think this is the most important meeting happening in Australia today. It's important because everybody here knows that climate change is real, urgent and accelerating. That is taken as read. We all know that, and the science we just heard from David just confirms that. But we are here, and this is the importance of the meeting, because we have to regroup, rethink, reorganise, re-energise this whole movement and redouble our efforts to get a campaign for a strong and genuine action on climate change in Australia this year and in the coming years. That's what we are doing here, not to debate anymore those issues that we hear in the media all the time, but rather to get ourselves organised. Now, we should not be surprised that the campaign has been pushed off centre stage. We ought not to be surprised. As I said to you last year, this is a classic case of Machiavelli, where you've got a situation where, as he said, nothing's more difficult to achieve than to bring about a change in the order of things, because those who have a vested interest in maintaining the old order fight like partisans, and those who believe in the new order are lukewarm because, and he says mankind, so I will in this context, because mankind. So in the last year we have seen the old vested interests fight like partisans, and it has derailed essentially the movement for climate action. Now, it's not rocket science what they have done. We could have done it. The only difference is they have money, of course, but I'll just put that to one side. The sceptics are not spontaneous outbursts from independent people here and there, just coming up with these ideas. It's a carefully orchestrated, it's a funded campaign, and it's by the oil and gas, the logging, all of the old order, cement, the whole range of them. All of those vested interests in the old order have put a great deal of money and effort into organising a global campaign fronted by a range of sceptics who supposedly spontaneously pop up when they are needed, and they poured everything into it in the lead up to Copenhagen, and they were successful to the extent that they destabilised the media coverage in the months leading up to it and confused the population. As to the IPCC and the criticisms, the same thing. This is not just spontaneous. It is using the self-correcting mechanisms of science against science. Essentially, that's the job of scientists, to find mistakes people have made, prove them, move on, change the science and so on. But of course they've made that seem as if it is some kind of major fault. Now, the thing is, in Australia, those lobbyists for the oil and gas, the coal industry, all of them, the old energy orders, if you like, the old fossil fuel sectors, have been in Parliament House frequently. You look at the lobbyists, they are there weekly in all parliamentary offices, wanting to talk to you about everything, and the echo chambers are there with them, with the generators groups, the Business Council of Australia, and the whole lot of them. But the climate movement hasn't been there. We need, you, all of us, to have a much bigger presence in every Parliament House in the country, state and federal. And you have to pester to get those meetings and insist on having them, because we need an equal and opposite reaction. As I said to you last year, it needs the climate action groups on the ground to radicalise the mainstream movement, which got very conservative, with the exception, I'd say, of Greenpeace in particular on energy and Twiz on the forests. Apart from that, things were very, very conservative, and it is those large groups that have got the presence in Canberra, not the people on the ground. So it is critical that this group, we get organised so that a very strong climate action movement is in Parliament houses everywhere, and the absence of them lends itself to Martin Ferguson, as some of you would have seen this week on Lateline, on there saying, well, the renewables really have to prove themselves. He didn't go on to say, unlike carbon capture and storage, which we have given billions to, which of course is completely and utterly unproven, not to mention his investment in coal to liquids. And he has just appointed, or we've just passed legislation to set up the board of the Centre for Renewable Energy in Australia, and the interim chair is the former BHP Billiton person who ran the Olympic Dam expansion. And when I asked, why is it that all these people on the interim board, not one of them has any experience in renewable energy? One of the others, by the way, had won the Prime Minister's Medal for Nuclear. I thought that was really good to have him on a renewable energy board. They said, oh, well, you know, these people have to have project management and finance management skills. I said, well, as it happens, there's not a single nuclear project in the world that has come in on budget or on time. Having said that the vested interest derailed things in Australia and got rather firmly into the 5% reduction target and no further, and no reductions in Australia, all to be funded by buying permits from overseas. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge, business as usual, coal export, coal railways, everything business as usual. We're just buying the permits, that's all nice, everyone could agree to that. Having done that here, they also did it globally. The US was the critical player in Copenhagen, and those very same interests who are in our corridors here are in their corridors there, and they derailed any serious position for the US. And once the US had no serious position and refused to ratify Kyoto, the whole game was off globally. And I can go into that later, but essentially that's what happened. So that is not rocket science. It's very clear who destabilised what and how it